Okay, so here we are. We are we have a different presentation today. It is towards the end of our module two that tries to show the hazard and the vulnerability profile of our country of India. Okay, I hope you can see the presentation, right? Can you all see the presentation?
We can see.
Okay, good. So before we start, we should consider the fact that India is a very big country, and then someone can say that India is actually a mini world in the sense it is more like a continent, not a single country. So by saying so, you and I, everybody knows that we have a lot of diversity, and then as people say, or we consider that our strength lies in diversity, whatever is there across the continent. So if you look into this diversity plainly in the form of some physiographic divisions, you will know that the whole country is actually divided into different categories as the one that is shown here on the left hand side of the screen. So in the blue color here, it consists of the Himalayan mountain ranges, starting from Jammu Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, and then entire northeastern states, including Sikkim. And then we have the Great Plains that is shown in the yellow, light yellow color, where you can see it consists of Punjab, parts of Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal. And then the central highlands here, as you can see, the dark yellow ochre color, consisting in parts of Madhya Pradesh. And then the peninsular plateau, that is the big area of Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, Orissa, Jharkhand, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, as you can see it on the map. And we have a very huge coastline and that is also being shown as it is divided into the west coast as well as in the east coast. Uh, this coastline is the landmass that is adjacent to the oceans. And then you can see we have on the west Arabian Sea, and then on the east we have the Bay of Bengal. So these two coastlines consist of the coastal plains, and then we have the islands. So, in a nutshell, we cannot really say that India, all the disasters, all the hazards, or the vulnerability profiles across the country are exactly the same. It varies across the continent, and then it varies depending on mostly whatever is the physiographic divisions. Okay? That means physical as well as the geographic divisions of the country. Then you will see that depending on where we stand, we have some different categories of disasters or you can say natural hazards that are more prevalent in those particular categories within the continent itself. For example, in the parts of the Himalayan ranges, you will see mostly disasters such as landslides and earthquakes. Of course, there are floods in the northeastern part of the country because of the great rivers and then the creek network of the tributaries originating from the Tibet. And if I talk about the coastal floodings, so it will be mostly pronounced in the coastal plains of the country. See in the map. Then we have droughts, which are more towards the Great Plains as well as in the Central Highlands, parts of Rajasthan and Haryana. And we have what else? Disaster. So droughts, floods, tsunamis mostly in the coastal region, and then the landslides also in towards the coastal part here as you will come to see of different peninsular mountain ranges. So wherever we have mountains and hills, there are uh, lots of dust-reflective landslides occurring in those areas. And in terms of the percentages, here you can see roughly about 58% of the area of the country is affected by mostly geological disasters consisting of earthquakes and landslides, uh, predominantly earthquakes. Then 16% of the landmass is affected by droughts and similar arid situations, 12% mostly by the floods, 8% by cyclones, and then wind-related disasters, and also floods, and then 3% of the country's landmass is affected by the hazards such as landslides. Okay. So again, if you look at this slide, you get a grasp of whatever is the vulnerability profile of India, varying degree to the large number of natural as well as man-made disasters. So it says over 40 million hectares of the landmass is prone to floods and river erosion. And then this is a big number whenever it comes to the country as big as ours. You see 40 million hectares, and that is just an average estimate. And then around 59% of the landmass is prone to earthquakes of moderate to very high intensity. You will also see that across the country we have different earthquake seismic zones, which will show you where it is more vulnerable in different parts of the country. Then we have a very long coastline, around 7,500 kilometers. And out of the whole coastline, as you can see, almost 5,700 kilometers of the coastline is prone to cyclones and tsunamis. Only yesterday, there was a very severe cyclonic storm. Yes, that hit, uh, that was hitting the coastal part of West Bengal, Orissa, Andhra Pradesh, and then it was showing some sort of effects in some of the districts in northeastern states as well, cyclonic storm as well as depression. Then 68% of the cultivable land is vulnerable to drought. Drought is often a very big natural disaster which normally goes unnoticed. It is also known as a long-term disaster because it doesn't show within 1 day or 2 days. In order to see the effects of the drought, it requires quite a long analysis of the rainfall data over a period of pertaining to maybe more than 2, 3 decades. Then only you can tell that these actually being affected drought. And drought is also prevalent in hilly areas. It is quite astonishing, and we are at a risk from landslides and avalanches. So you will see that because of climate change nowadays, even earlier areas which were considered to be safe from drought are actually showing signs of some of the cultural and meteorological droughts due to the lack of enough rainfall. So apart from these, also we have vulnerability, or we are actually vulnerable to other disasters such as nuclear, biological, and chemical. So these, of course, are not really natural disasters. You can say these are man-made disasters. And terrorism has also not been eliminated from the risk. So whenever I put some kind of data like this, make sure, or whenever you are also going for a presentation, you should obviously mention the source where you are collecting the data. And as far as possible, try to get this data from some authentic source. So this source is actually National Institute of Disaster Management, that is NITM, which is our government agency under the Ministry of Home Affairs. So this data is actually considered to be a true representation of the vulnerability profile of the country. So we should always mention the source. Please remember that for your further presentations as well. Okay, So again, this slide
So,
also is coming.
so sir, data was
Yeah,
they collect the data yearly wise
yeah,
or
yeah. Yes, yes. So natural,
5 years.
not 5 years, every year data. So it is a cumulative data over a period of longer period, maybe 10 to 20 years. Okay. NIDM, NDMA, these are the national institutions which are associated with disaster management in India. Later on, we will study about these departments in our further classes. Okay. So another slide also, it is from the same source of NIDM. It shows some of the major disasters in the country starting from 1980 to 2011. So some of these disasters you are familiar with or you may have heard about it. For example, there was in 2001, 26 January, there was a huge earthquake which was very catastrophic in terms of the number of casualties people had. Then also we had the Latur earthquake in 1993, that was long ago. Then of course there are tsunamis which are also very deadly in terms of lives and properties that were lost. One of them were the tsunami that came in 26 December in 2004. So you see the tsunamis are mostly across the coastal areas. Okay, and then towards the eastern part of the country. The tsunamis also hit the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Here you see, this is also within our Indian territory. Then we have mostly the cyclones. As I said, cyclone is a kind of depression in the ocean or the bay, in the Bay of Bengal. So normally, whenever there is a depression that comes in the Bay of Bengal, it is termed as cyclone. We have a very big super cyclone that came in 29 October in 1999 in this particular state, that is in Orissa. It is still recognized as one of the devastating disasters India faced in its recorded history. Okay, and then we have one man-made disaster in Madhya Pradesh, that is the Bhopal gas disaster. That was in 1982. Uh, so floods are almost recurring these on an yearly basis in parts in Assam, in Bihar. So Bihar flood is mostly you will come to see because of the Kosi River and also the Ganga is flowing through it. And in Assam, it is due to the great river of Brahmaputra and its tributaries. Then Sikkim also had an earthquake in 2011. And then in parts of Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand, we see frequent earthquakes and landslides, which are also recorded. So this is just a very small glimpse of some of the major disasters this, from the period of 1980 to 2011. This is a recorded information that I have collected from that I'm showing it here. Okay, again in terms of the same thing, just in a tabular form, if I want to highlight a few, the last 40 years, starting from 1972 to 2012, so droughts, as I said, these are very important from the point that India is an agricultural country. So in 1972, almost 200 million people were affected. At the same time, remember that during 1972, the total population of the country were also much smaller. So in terms of the percentage affected, it was quite high. Just a moment. Then in 1977, cyclone pertaining to around 10,000 people killed, and then these are a lot of casualties also inflicted. Again,
Sir,
drought.
sir,
Oh,
sir, confused here, sir. Cyclone is, occur in the ocean. Andhra Pradesh is in the middle of the India. How it can be affect the?
see where Andhra Pradesh is here. That is why I'm showing you the
Hello,
map.
sir.
Hmm. Can you see the map? Andhra Pradesh is this green state. This is not somewhere in the middle. It has a coastline. Can you see here? Huh?
Yes, sir. But as soon as the cyclone reaches to the land, it all it dissipated, as per my knowledge. So how can it affect lots?
So, to your understanding, what do you want to say? Cyclone doesn't affect the land areas or what?
Yes, sir. No, no, no. As soon as cyclone, cross the coastal area, when it reaches to the land, so it dissipated automatically. No, sir.
Yeah, of course.
So
So
how?
even if it
So
crosses 50 kilometers across the coastal area, so these 50 kilometers, there are people, there are settlements, there are infrastructure, which are obviously damaged. Even if it crosses 100 kilometers across this landmass, the power to inflict damage of a cyclone or a tropical depression still remains. So from this coastal zone up to 100 kilometers inside this landmass, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of villages, there are a lot of infrastructure. So these are at the forefront of the devastation. So that
there
is
the
why.
most people who are living at the coastal will get affected.
Of course.
Okay.
So India has a huge population. In terms of the population density, if you calculate it in terms of square kilometers of land mass, you will come to see we are in one of the highest densely populated nations. So people live in the coastal belts. People do not only live inside this country. So whenever there is a cyclone that comes, even if it crosses 100 kilometers, still the moment its energy is completely lost, it does its destruction. That is why these coastal areas are very vulnerable. You see, these coastal areas here in the yellow color, and on the west side, Kerala, Karnataka, Gujarat. So almost all these areas are affected by cyclones and windstorms. You see, close to 5,700 kilometers prone to cyclones. That is from the government source. So in 1990, cyclone came in Andhra Pradesh. As you can see, Andhra Pradesh is here in the green state. It has a huge coastline just below Orissa and just above Tamil Nadu. And then earthquake came in Latu, 7,928 people died. This many people are affected, injured. Again, cyclone came in 1996, 1,000 people died. These many houses were destroyed in terms of economic damage, 20.26 billion. So this list just goes on. As I was saying, there was a super cyclone that came in 1999 in Orissa. 10,000 recorded people dead, and some sources say that death numbers actually crossed more than 1 lakh. It is just that people are not being recorded. So it is huge loss in terms of casualties or number of fatalities. Then earthquake in 2001, Gujarat, almost 14,000. Tsunamis, as you can see, 2004. What are the states that were directly affected? Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh. Again, these are all coastal states. Andhra Pradesh, Pondicherry, Andaman and Nicobar Islands of India. So you can see the map, all this yellow belt, then green belt. Okay, and mm, obviously the list goes on, and then I just do not go to read all and everything here. Just see. And then in terms of the floods are almost occurring in every year. These are in terms of the occurrence. These are more frequently occurring disasters. Then droughts also. These many districts in 10 states. Again, cloudburst. Okay, so what someone is asking, what is a cloudburst? So cloudburst is something that a huge amount of rainfall just is being released within a very short period of time due to some of the atmospheric activities. So parts in Leh, Ladakh, Jammu Kashmir, but also in Uttarakhand, than in Himachal Pradesh. This is quite a common threat or a hazard. Okay, again you see Uttarakhand and Himalaya experienced a cloudburst in 2012. It is a very recent one. Hundreds died and huge economic loss. Then Assam, Madhya Pradesh, all these states are prone to floods. So anyway, I will share with you this presentation. For that, you should so just refer to it. Okay, so before I again proceed to the next lecture, I'd say the next discussions, I want all of you to really know about the country and about the river systems of the country. So by saying so, that means I am not sure if you really are familiar with the different rivers in India. So as you know, India is a very big country, and the rivers in India are also categorized according to their origin. So some of them are Himalayan rivers, which are mostly perennial rivers. Some of them are originating within the country, and then some of the rivers are going towards the west. Some of them are going towards the east. So depending on that, they are categorized differently. So somehow I found a very good video to share with you. So just spare some moment and then see the video.
In this video, we shall learn about the major rivers in India. Well, the major rivers in India can be divided into the Himalayan rivers and the rivers of the Indian Plateau. The major Himalayan rivers are River Ganga, River Brahmaputra, and River Indus. These are not just rivers, they are river system. River Ganga is the longest and the most important river of India. It is 2,525 kilometers long and it flows through the states of Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, and West Bengal. River Ganga is the most sacred river to Hindus. It is also a lifeline to millions of Indians who live along its course and depend on it for their daily needs. River Ganga originates from the Gangotri Glacier at Gomukh. The headwaters of Ganga is known as Bhagirathi. It joins river Alaknanda at Devprayag, and from here the river is known as Ganga. Yamuna is the second largest tributary of Ganga. River Yamuna originates at Yamunotri and joins Ganga at Nala. It is the longest river in India which does not directly flow to the sea. The rivers joining Ganga from the north are Ramganga, Gomati, Agra, Rapti joins Agra, Ganda, and Kosi. River Agra is the largest tributary of Ganga. The rivers joining Yamuna from the south are Chambal. Now, the tributaries of Chambal are Banas, Parvati, and Kali Singh. The other tributaries of Yamuna are River Singh and Betwa. The tributary of Betwa is Assam, where it is Ken and Tones. River Son joins River Ganga. The tributary of River Son are Bihan and Koyal. In West Bengal, River Ganga is joined by Virakshi and Damodar. Coming to the next river, River Indus. Well, the Indus River is 3,180 kilometers long, and this makes it one of the longest rivers in Asia. The river originates in the western part of Tibet, in the vicinity of Mount Kailash Lake Mansar. The river passes through Jammu Kashmir and before joining Arabian Sea, passes through Pakistan. It is the longest river and national river of Pakistan. River Satluj is the largest tributary of River Indus. It originates from Rakshasthal Lake in Tibet. This river flows through the states of Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, and joins River Indus in Pakistan. The tributaries of Indus are Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Bias, and in the northern part, the tributaries are Shyam, Gilgit, and Jhaskar. The next important Himalayan river is the river Brahmaputra. River Brahmaputra is one of the major rivers of Asia which flows through China, India, and Bangladesh. This river is 3,848 kilometers long. River Brahmaputra is also called Sangpo in Tibet. It originates on the Chimangyongdong Glacier located on the northern side of the Himalayas in Kurang County of Tibet. When I say county, a county is a geographical region of country used for administrative or other purpose certain modern nations. The Brahmaputra enters India in the state of Arunachal Pradesh, where it is called Siang. In Assam, the river is called Brahmaputra. In Bangladesh, Brahmaputra is joined by the river Teesta, then it is known as Jammu. Later on, it merges with the lower Ganga called the river. In the final part, the river is called Meghna. Now, the main tributaries of Brahmaputra are river Teesta, Tubri, Panas, Subansiri, Lohit, Dipam, Thanasiri, Opili, and Meghna. River Meghna in the initial stage is known as Barak. River Surma. When it turns south, it is known as the important rivers of the Indian plateau are Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri, Narmada, and Tapi. River Mahanadi originates in Chhattisgarh. It is an important river of Chhattisgarh and the tributaries of River Mahanadi are Seona, Hasdev, Man, Kip, Ong, and River Dale. River Godavari is the second longest river in India after the river Ganga. It has its source at Trembakeshwar. The main tributaries of river Godavari are river Pravara, Uma, Wainganga. The tributaries of Wainganga are Wainganga and river Vardha. Then it is Manjara and Indravati. River Krishna originates in the Western Ghats near Mahabaleshwar. The main tributaries of Krishna are Bhima, Tungabhadra, Ghatprabha, and Malaprabha. Then it is river Pennar and river Kaveri. The two important westward flowing rivers of India are river Narmada and river Tapi. River Narmada is the longest westward flowing rivers of India. Thank you for watching. In this video, we shall learn about some more important rivers of India. In the southern part of India, the important eastward flowing rivers are River Pennar, River Palar, River Ponnayar, River Kaveri, and River Vaigai. River Kaveri is the most important river of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. This river is 765 kilometers long and it originates from Talakaveri, Kodagu in Karnataka. The important tributaries of River Kaveri are Hemavati, Shimsha, Arkavati, Kabini, Bhavani, Noyal, and Amravati. In Kerala, the most important river is River Periyar. This river is 244 kilometers long. Coming to the central part of India, we have River Narmada. It is the longest westward flowing river of India. This river is 1312 kilometers long. River Narmada originates from Amarkantak Plateau near Maikal Range. It is the fifth longest river in the Indian subcontinent and the third longest river that entirely flows within India after River Godavari and River Krishna. This river lies between two mountain ranges, that is Vindhya Range and the Satpura Range. So we can say River Narmada flows through a narrow gorge that is formed between these two mountain ranges. River Narmada is regarded as the lifeline of Madhya Pradesh. The important tributaries of River Narmada are Burhaner, Banjar, Sher, Shakhar, Tawa, Kolar, and River Orsan. River Tapi is the second longest westward flowing river of India. This river originates from Mahadev Hills near Multai. This river is 724 kilometers long. The important tributaries of River Tapi are Purna, Girna, River Sabarmati are other important kilometers long. The important tributaries of River Tapi are Purna, Girna, and River Panjra. River Mahi and River Sabarmati are other important rivers of Gujarat. River Mahi originates from Vindhya Range. River Luni is an important river of Rajasthan. Both River Sabarmati and River Luni originates from Aravalli Range. We have already learned that River Mahanadi is an important river of Chhattisgarh and Odisha. The other important rivers of Odisha are River Brahmani and River Baitarni. River Subarnarekha flows through Jharkhand, Odisha, and West Bengal. The important westward flowing rivers originating from Western Ghat are River Vaitarna, Ulhas, Savitri, and Vashishti from Maharashtra. River Mandovi and River Zuari from Goa. River Shavati from Karnataka and Bharatapuzha is the second most important river in Kerala.
Okay. So did you see this? This is a very nicely explained video showing almost all these rivers that are within India. And as you can see, some of the rivers they cross France boundary or the political uh, map of India in terms of their origin, and then some of the rivers are actually originating within the country and then completely within the country. So normally, when we talk about a river or a flood or a river system, we normally do not go by the political or the geographic boundaries. Rather, we talk in terms of the river watershed or the basins. So all these rivers, they do have a particular watershed or basin. So these basins, they again have different maps, and then you will see that these basins cross the normal political and administrative boundaries of the countries, particularly in India. For example, Brahmaputra River actually is flowing from Tibet and crossing Tibet in China and then entering India, then going to Bangladesh. And also a parts of Nepal is within the greater basin of this river. So this is very difficult sometimes when it comes to talking about flood management because these different basins, the same basin, they can fall in different administrative areas. For example, Brahmaputra itself falls, upper basin falls in China, and then the lower basin falls in Bangladesh, and then the middle part of the river, the basin falls in India. So alone, India cannot have entire administrative powers on the water of the rivers of Brahmaputra. Similarly, as you see, the Indus River, it flows from Tibet and then goes in the western direction, crossing India, and then major part of the river, which is flowing through Pakistan. So Pakistan, though the major part of the river lies in Pakistan, they do not have the control of the entire part of the river. So these actually amounts to a lot of conflicts. Sometimes these are even wars that goes on because of the waters. And then strategically, a country which is at the upper part of the basin or the upper basin countries, they have further advanced, let's say, mm, control in terms of the utilization of the waters of these rivers so that they can dictate the countries which are in the lower basin in many terms. So later on, you will also see that there are numerous examples of these things. Okay,
Sir,
so yes,
do they don't have a river like in earlier also recently in our Arunachal there was lot of problem about river. China are constructing dams and all, and due to that river was
yes,
very
yes, yes,
and then there is no aquatic aquatic environment in the river. So a lot of conflict is going on here now in Arunachal.
yes, yes, exactly.
So how can we solve that, sir? They are saying that there is a we can approach to the higher like UN like that for
Yes,
preservation of environment act
yes,
like how can it can be solved, sir?
yes. It's a very good question you are asking and raising. I am glad that you are aware about the situation. You see, as I said, that a river is not confined by the political boundary. So if I just go to the video again and then show you a part of the video where Brahmaputra River is being
Pradesh,
shown.
where it is called.
Okay, so here you see that the Brahmaputra River is originating somewhere in Tibet, and then a greater part of the river is flown or is across China and Tibet, now Tibet. And then here in Arunachal Pradesh, as you know, in Siang, it gets a name and then enters India. So, by the way, we don't have much time, around 5 minutes left. So within this time, I'll try to explain whatever I can. And here, if China wants to control the dam on the upper part of the river, that is the upper part somewhere here or here or here or here or here, India doesn't have a say on whatever the internal policies of the country of China. That is why it is very difficult. But in order to go for a sustainable and equitable way of sharing the waters of the river, there is one organization in UN where our country can raise this issue, and it has actually been done. But again, the case will be valid only if India shows that India has been utilizing the river waters of Brahmaputra already, and then by constructing a dam somewhere in the upper part of the river, it is greatly hampering the already using waters in the Indian part. But so far, if you look at the Brahmaputra River, India in their own great sharing, we are not really utilizing the river water in Brahmaputra. So it is very difficult for us to convince the international organizations that we should not allow China to build a dam on the upper part of the basin, because China, on the other hand, contradicts the fact that this river water is actually being not utilized in the lower part of the basin. So this is a very, I don't know, like the case is a little bit difficult for India to convince at the international court. So if India were already using these river waters for some purpose, like the hydroelectric generation or transportation or irrigation, uh, it, not the way that we are doing it, but in a massive way, if we show, or if we can convince the international community that we are dependent on the river waters in Brahmaputra to a very great extent. So that is where the case lies. This is upon us how we convince the people in the international court that this is a really lifeline for the people of entire northeastern India. So unless we can convince it, China, we cannot really stop China from building a dam in their part of the river. So that is why I say that strategically placed countries at the upper part of a basin are always at a commandable situation in terms of dictating how the waters should be used uh, in the other for other countries. Okay. Okay. So I'll stop here for the time being, but tomorrow let us continue with it, and then I will share with the link where you can give the attendances. Any question?
Okay, Sandro.
Okay.
Sir,
Yes.
so we cannot make case against like environment protection because due to that construction of them, lot of aquatic animals
No,
are vanishing.
the good thing is that yes, we can, but that will not prevent China from doing whatever they are doing. That case doesn't hold good. We can, but China is not really bound by those treaties. So whatever, that is why we have the treaties, water sharing treaties. So with China and then with India, all those countries that are sharing the basin of the Brahmaputra, they have to come to a common consensus regarding the utilization of the waters in these rivers. So, as by my knowledge, we are not really bound by any good treaty so far. That is why we cannot really compel China to stop doing whatever they have been doing. So this is not the case with Brahmaputra. Even in the Southeast Asian countries like in Cambodia, Vietnam, Myanmar, Thailand, China is sharing its boundary with the Mekong River, and the same situation is happening there. So wherever country is there at the upper basin, they have an advantage in this term, in dictating their policies regarding the sharing of waters. But even lower countries, they can still complain or they can still launch cases, which people are doing in these countries. So for us also, we have this option of going to some international court